Do you remember the feeling of hitting your first million?
My first lick, yeah. Yeah. So I do remember, and it was over a course of a year. So
Okay.
it was my revenue.
Right.
And yeah, I got the tattoo, Count It All Joy. That
Oh,
commemorates that.
it's okay for
Yeah.
okay.
It was a great feeling because I had written out, I believe in tithing.
Okay.
So I wrote out $100,000 check
Okay.
to my church and put it on the wall like 6 years before that.
Mm.
And 10% of a million is what?
Ooh, 100,000.
100,000. So when I hit that, and I didn't give the church
Yeah, I was
100,000.
gonna
No,
say.
I didn't do that. I do tithe in other
Right.
ways in my business.
Right.
But to know that I've visualized writing a check for $100,000 and I was able to do it if I wanted to,
Right.
meant everything to me.
Okay.
But what came with that, I got lax. I wasn't praying as fervently as I was before. I'm like, oh, I made it. So God, I started taking God for granted. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
he'll do it again. And
Yeah.
he did do it again the next year.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as free flowing. Like I was having to hustle
Yeah,
to
you
get
worked
it
for
done.
it.
I worked for it.
Yeah.
And then eventually business started to slow, quite honestly.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God, you know how you going up and you kind of can tell when you kind of come back
Yeah.
down? And I realized when I was coming back down, I said, whoa, God, I'm sorry, whoa, what
Yeah.
I do? I had to go, I went into the prayer closet. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. Got back to the
I'm
basics.
spending, I'm in North Park Mall spending, I'm
That's how it
eating
be.
all the things and give me a ribeye
Yep.
and some potatoes. Before I could afford a cutlet. Okay. There was times I had 50 cents in my account.
Yeah.
$20 to last me for a month. Like that's how bad it was at one point. And the hitting that lick, I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
And so I had to pray to God and I said, Lord, I'm learning. Thank you for, trusting me with these families and trusting me with this. I was still I tithed on my child support. Like I didn't play. On my personal, I tithed everything to the cent. I said, Lord, I'm still honoring you. I'm still tithing. Whatever I need to do to let you know that I want to learn this lesson.
Right.
When I learn it, I promise you, you will never have to take me through this valley. Now, maybe another valley.
Yeah, something different.
This here.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, I've learned to just be still.
What a world. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Cosigns Conversations podcast. I'm here with an amazing entrepreneur. She's actually the CEO of Mansfield Funeral Home and Cremations at Frisco and in Mansfield. She's a serial entrepreneur. She has a nonprofit foundation, so she's always about the community and giving back. Today, we're here with Christie K. How you doing today?
I am amazing. Thank you. How are you, KG?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Not many times people ask how you're doing, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely. That matters.
It really does. It really does. Yeah. Before we kind of get into it, I always like to start with like the entrepreneurs and the guests I'm interviewing with their journey, right? Like we know who you are today, but like how did you get here, right? So when you were, a kid in high school, you went to Hampton University for college, right?
I did.
Did you know this is the path you were going to take?
I knew when I was 9, actually, that I wanted to be a mortician. So we'll start there. So I knew I wanted to be a mortician when I was 9. And that just came from me being around when my great-grandmother passed. And I was there when she passed and I watched them embalm her. And I was like really fascinated with the science of it. And it wasn't until like about to graduate from high school, I realized I like the science, but I also like dealing with people as well. So I wanted to go straight to mortuary school out of high school. My parents were like, absolutely not. So this was back in 96. Mortuary school at the time only gave you an associate's degree. And so my dad was like, there aren't very many women in the industry. And in 20, 30 years, an associate is not going to serve you.
Gotcha.
Because they consider me to be a very smart kid.
Right.
So he said, tell you what, you go to college first. Once you get your bachelor's, you do whatever you want. And so I went to Hampton. And it's funny because I'm a mortician, but I'm terrified of blood.
Really?
To this day.
For those who don't know what mortician is, identify what that is.
Right. So you have a funeral director and then you have an embalmer. Right? Somebody that can do both. That term is usually a mortician, but they use it synonymously between, both. But here in Texas, you can be a funeral director only, or you could be a funeral director and embalmer. And then some people have the funeral director's license, but they prefer to just embalm because it's a skill set. Not all embalmers will make funeral directors, and not all funeral directors can make great embalmers.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
But let me ask you this: once you graduate, did you go and start your own, or did you work for somebody to gain experience first?
So at Hampton, the courses were very rigorous. So I started working as a morgue clerk for the Veterans Hospital. So I was in charge of removing the organs and everything, so the pathologist could make determination on how the person passed for the death certificate. And so I did that. I worked for the Bureau for a little bit as a DNA 2 scientist. And then I got a scholarship to go to Tennessee State and Meharry Medical College. So the plan was to come back home after Hampton, but I'm like, I'm working for the Bureau. I got this $100,000 scholarship. Let me go ahead and get my master's and then my PhD. But by the time I got my master's, I was done with that school. I was like, I can't do eight more years of school for a PhD.
Nah, for sure.
And so I moved back to Dallas, which is where I'm from. And the number one school in the nation at the time was Dallas Institute, which is in Pleasant Grove.
Oh, wow.
So I came back home, hanging out with family and friends, finished school within a year, taught elementary school, and then I actually went back and was a professor. So I was a professor. I taught chemistry, embalming. I taught arts. I taught grief, psychology at the school. And then I started working for funeral homes. Yes.
At 9 years old, I wanted to be a naval aviator, like Top Gun, right? And then life goes on and you change your mind. For you to know at 9 and to actually go through with it is amazing. At any point in your life that you were like, maybe I'll try something different. I know you were a teacher first, but even at that point, were you still thinking, okay, the end goal is to be a mortician?
Yes, I've done other things. Like I worked for Waffle House Corporation. So I was one of the first women managers for Evergreen Funeral Home, which is a funeral home in Dallas. And so a guy saw me on the service and he saw how personable I was with the families.
Right.
And he said, I would love for you to come work for my corporation. I'm like, okay, well, what corporation is that? He said, Waffle House. I was like, you want me to fry some eggs and make some waffles? Absolutely not.
Not doing that.
Well, he was like, well, on the corporate side, there aren't any African American women, and we would love to take you up the ladder. He said, tell you what, come to my store at 35 in Wintergreen in DeSoto. He said, come next Saturday. He said, when you're done with the 7 to 2 shift, he said, I'll triple whatever you're making right now. He didn't even know what I was making working at Evergreen. He said, I'll triple what you're making. He said, that's how confident I know that you'll do well. So I went, I worked. At 2:30, I was making triple out what I was making at Evergreen.
So you did a 7 to 2 Waffle House shift?
No, just 7 to 2. I worked the full. I got there at 6:30. I did my last little clean up the tables at 2, just to kind of get the feel of how to cook and all the things.
Got you.
They taught me the administrative stuff, and I was making triple the amount. So I went back to my mentor, Dr. Madison. I said, listen, I love the funeral industry. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
But I'm 24 years old, and this man's offering me 6 figures.
Yeah.
Can you match it? He was like, no. I said, okay.
I gotta go.
So I hollered at him.
Man, quick story. I used to want to have a Waffle House franchise. I looked it up, and I don't believe Waffle. Well, no, I think you do. I think with Waffle House, you have to work there for a little bit before you own one. So that's the only reason why I stopped there. Waffle House and Chick-fil-A, I'm like, man, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
It's hard.
Nah, definitely.
I made the money, but they wore me out.
For sure. I believe so. Okay, so that's interesting. So you do Waffle House for how long?
I was there about 2 years.
2 years. What did you learn from that you kind of applied to when you went back to the more funeral business?
I learned that I had the tenacity to just walk into any situation and make it better. I was working with people who came from a different background than what I was used to and a different understanding of work ethic. And I was able to take them from their mindset into a different mindset. And so my stores, I've managed 7 or 8 stores across the Metroplex. And we were some of the top stores because I was able to shift their mindset from being a worker, just like a shift worker, to being a team leader. And they really hadn't had that type of leadership. And so when I saw that I could do that, then I'm like, I can do this with my passion.
Let me ask you that with that mindset thing, was it any difference in pay? And I'm telling you why I get there. Was there any difference in pay, or is it just more so I just want you to think of yourself at a higher level? Like, how did you persuade them to change their mindset?
It was definitely not a difference in pay.
Okay.
So it was more so, if you're gonna be here, you're gonna be here in excellence.
Okay.
If you're gonna flip these eggs, you're gonna make the best eggs you can possibly make.
Mm.
And I just showed them the difference. I remember walking in and seeing some scrambled eggs, and the person just half scrambled them.
Right.
And I said, when someone sits this plate in front of you,
right,
how would you feel? And so I just kind of took them from that point of, how would you feel if you're being served? I know that the floor is dirty. I know the grill is a mess and all the things,
right,
but you decided to be here.
right.
So how can you make the environment better? And that's how they kind of
That's good.
shifted.
I said something like that. So when I was younger, like 19 to 21 or 2022, I worked overseas in Afghanistan as a civilian contractor. So I was there as an engineer technician, but a lot of my colleagues who were around the same age as me were there for like DFAC stuff, which was basically like cooks, or they worked in, or they're like laborers, right? I had a friend who went over there. He was making $100,000 to scoop ice cream,
Wow.
and he would complain. I'm like, man, think about your situation, bro. You're getting paid six figures to scoop ice cream. You should really be the best ice cream scooper that ever existed.
Perfect scoop.
You know, perfect scoops. And look who you're serving. You're serving, military personnel who, once they get this ice cream, they probably got to go get off base to go defend us so that we don't get bombed in this part of Afghanistan, bro. So it's like make it an experience for them. You know what I'm saying? While we're here, so. I see that we got the same mindset.
I love it. Yeah.
But we are like a business podcast. I do want to share more of your journey, but I kind of want to get to the funeral home business.
Okay.
Okay. And I also want to make sure that, I'm play devil's advocate for a little bit, right? So the funeral home business is not a sexy business, right? But I'm pretty sure it's a lucrative business because there's one thing that's guaranteed in life is people will pass away.
Yes.
All right. When you were starting, or I know you said you worked at a funeral home, got the experience. When you decided to go out on your own, kind of talk about that process. Did you have six figures saved up, or did you utilize business capital? What was that process like? Because I feel like a lot of us in the entrepreneurial community, we start smaller businesses because we're like, I don't have the capital to do it, so let me bootstrap until I can get there. But then you're also wasting a lot of time instead if you just went and got the capital. So what was your process?
So I first made sure that I was in the mindset to be able to be great.
Okay.
I never settled for, let me just figure it out and just throw it out there and let's see what sticks. I've never been that type of person.
Okay.
So the first thing I did is I drew out a floor plan of exactly what I wanted the funeral home to look.
Okay.
I had the color schemes. I met with an interior decorator, and we were filling out a floor plan.
Okay.
And she did it on Excel. She was able to do stuff on Excel.
Oh, wow.
And then we add the colors. I put the type of couches I wanted and the columns and all the things, right? And so that was a couple of years before I actually started the journey. I just kind of put it out there in the atmosphere.
Right.
I put it on the wall and I would look at it. I would pray over it. And I just kind of left it alone.
Okay.
And then after working with funeral homes, I was one of the top funeral directors for a major corporation. They gave me a goal of one particular package once every 6 months. I sold 4 in like 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Like I was really, really good. I'm really, really good at what I do. However, I take a lot of time with my families.
Okay.
And when you're working for a corporation, it's more like a factory.
Gotcha.
Right? So once I realized that they wanted me to turn, and one time I had a person crying on my shoulder and they were like, hurry up, you got to get them out. I'm like, this doesn't work for me.
Right.
So that's when I kind of went down the path and I started talking to banks. So to answer your question, I had not a dime.
Okay.
So by then I had been divorced.
Okay.
I had a small child, and leaving Waffle House, it was an unfortunate situation for me having to leave. So I went from six figures to making about 40,000 in like literally a weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I had a lifestyle of six figures.
Right.
So I was in a hole, but I knew I had a purpose, and it wasn't being fulfilled working for these people.
For sure.
Okay. So I didn't have any money. So that's when I solicited, but I went to someone who I felt that could help.
Okay. They
had the capital. I had the knowledge.
Okay.
The knowledge that they had would help me so I wouldn't have to work so hard. So that's how we formed the partnership.
Okay.
Then, and then I was working on my credit. That person had the credit for real. I was working on it.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I went into it without a dime and I went into it with shaky credit. But I had the faith that somebody was going to see in me what I already knew that God could do for me. Yeah. And it worked.
Okay. So for this particular start, you utilized their capital and their credit and your vision for the business to get off the ground.
Well, actually, so when we got to the table and it was time, after being denied by 7 banks, the 8th bank approved it.
Oh, wow.
The 8th bank told me, you know what, we believe in you. Oh, but they denied me first, and I begged them to give me a chance.
Right.
So they said, you know what, we believe in you. Go find some land you can build or you can rehab. I ended up finding some land in Mansfield, Texas.
Okay.
Called the realtor. Realtor was like, "You sound black." So
That's what she said?
yeah, you sound black.
Was she black?
He was not.
Oh, he was white.
Yeah, he was like, "You sound black," and I'm gonna tell you now, Mansfield does not want anybody building a funeral home that's black in your city, like straight up.
Wow.
I said, "Well, you know what I'm saying?" I said, "I respect your perspective. I'm just making phone calls. If it's meant for me to be in Mansfield, I'm going to be in Mansfield."
Right.
2 weeks later, he sent me an email. Actually, the owners of Mansfield Funeral Home wants to sell, but they want it to be a private sale. Are you interested? Absolutely. The person I brought in as a business partner and I walked into the building. It was the exact building that I drew years before. Same floor plan, same colors, same furniture.
Wow.
There was nothing that I had to change. I literally just almost fell to the ground crying. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Why did just back up a little bit? Why the banks deny y'all if he had the capital and the credit already?
They denied because my business plan was so full. They would tell me, this is the best business plan we've ever seen. I had drilled everything down to the brass tacks. I was able to tell them how I was going to get families. And the funeral home business is very, very, very hard to conceptualize because people don't want to, first of all, think about it. They know it's lucrative, but you're dealing with death. So they're like, well, 1 month you may do well, the next month you might.
Right.
There are so many stories out there of people misappropriating funds. So how do we know that you're going to be able to pay? An underwriter actually called me and said, it was a black woman. She said, "Sis, let me tell you." Yeah. She said, "We're not supposed to know this, but we know that you're black." And at the time I was 34, 35. Okay. She was like, "And you are young." She was like, "Nobody's going to approve you. I just want to go ahead and tell you to figure something else out." And I said, "I received that, but not really. Right. I'm going to make it."
You said you were in your early 30s?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dang. That's unfortunate that more than one instance they try to deter you just because you're a black woman.
Absolutely. And was bold about it.
Man, when you hear that from them, I know you said you respect how honest they are, but do you also take it as disrespected, as far as doubt, or they don't know you, so you don't really take it personal? I take a lot of things personal. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I've learned not to take it personal because I grew up. I went to all magnet schools. Okay. Usually, I was the only one. I worked for the bureau. I was the only one.
Gotcha.
My major that I majored in, I was one of the only ones. Okay. So I'm used to people doubting me, but I'm used to those same people circling back and apologizing. Right. And those same people that doubted me have come back and apologized. Yeah.
Okay. So you get approved. You finally get approved. The 8th bank. You work with them. You finally get approved. What was that first year of business like?
It was interesting. So I quickly realized that the partnership that I formed was not going to work.
In year 1?
Second month.
Wow.
Yeah. So I ended up having to bring on 2 silent partners. It was supposed to be just me and the one other person. Okay. The person had the capital. Then the 2 of us had the credit. By the time we got to the table, I then had the credit. Okay. And the bank was like, "Well, you can actually do the loan. You don't really need the other person." I'm like, "Well, I'm a loyal person. Let me go ahead and keep them on." Well, by then they no longer had the capital for whatever reason. I was like, "What do you mean? We closing
Yeah."
So we very quickly brought on 2 silent partners. One was my actual uncle, my blood uncle, and then somebody else that person knew. Okay. So 2 months in, we realized that the main partnership that we had was not on the grounds that it should have been for the business to work. I have to kind of be careful about what I talk about with that. So it didn't really work out. So the first year and a half was about restructuring leadership. In the midst of being in a new market, Mansfield's the last city to desegregate in Texas, and they were forced to do so. But the blessing in it was that people were able to see my heart. I'd hit the pavement. I went to all the churches. Right. I met with pastors. And a lot of the families who were used to the previous owner, they were calling us not knowing that ownership had changed. And it wasn't until they walked through the door and they're like, "Right, you're black." I'm like, "You're here now. Come on." And so I would just win them, kind of win them over. Gotcha. We did well the first year, 2 years. However, I saw every single family by myself. And we did probably 150 families the first year. The next year we did like 200 and something. I literally saw every family. I was running myself on the ground.
In the first 2 years?
In the first 2 years.
Oh wow, that brings up a whole nother subject because this is May, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month. About taking care of ourselves as entrepreneurs. But before we get into that, there was one thing you said I don't want to pass out on because a lot of entrepreneurs go through this, right? So you say you didn't have the capital, so for that business loan, you have to still put down down payment or deposit for the loan.
Yes. So what I ended up doing, my silent partners brought in a certain percentage in exchange for equity.
Okay.
And then my grandfather gifted me with majority of the money.
Oh, wow.
And then the rest of the money, I convinced the previous owner to do a seller note.
Okay.
So I did a 3-year seller note. I negotiated like 3%, like 2 or 3% on the note, which was unheard of.
Right.
They just really wanted to sell it.
Gotcha.
And then I did a prepayment, no prepayment penalty.
Okay.
And so the note was for 3 years. I was able to pay it off in 18 months.
Oh wow. Who taught you that business acumen? That you knew that yourself, or did somebody tell you like, hey, why don't you try this option to like get it financed?
I finally learned. I was raised as a very strong, independent person.
Right.
So much so that I misconstrued that I shouldn't ask for help. And so it wasn't until I asked my godfather, who's Ambassador Ron Kirk.
Okay.
Yeah. So I called him. I said, Godfather, I need your help.
Right.
Right. So it wasn't until I learned how to open my mouth and ask for help, and then to pray for discernment, because everyone that speaks to you are not for you.
Right.
Sure. And I also learned that it's okay to hear advice, but you don't necessarily have to take it.
True.
So, and at that point, I just realized it's important for me to walk the path. Like, I know where I want to go.
Right.
It's important for me to walk down the path.
Okay, when you're walking that path, I know myself in particular, right? I know where I want to go, but it's like I feel like I don't know how to get there, right? I'm doing so many things that I feel like takes me off the path that I'm thinking is gonna get me straight there, but it doesn't. It's like it takes me to the left and it brings me back, then it goes forward. But I guess that's every kind of journey, right? It's nothing's gonna be straight or as precise. But yeah, I know definitely a lot of people deal with that. Is like we have the vision, but it's like okay, how do we reverse engineer that, and how do we figure out how to get there in the correct path? So
I will say I've learned that I find joy in manifesting, not the manifested.
Okay.
So like the manifested is once you get there and it's done.
Right.
I find joy in getting there, whatever ebbs and flows and twists and turns it gets me there. I go according to what makes me feel good, what fills me up. And when I do things according to that, it always works out. I even do that when I know I have to meet, like I had to meet a family this morning, right? I prayed about what to wear. I prayed about what perfume to put on, because I know when it comes to grief, certain colors, certain scents will trigger people. And so when I pray and I meditate every morning, that helps me to then go down the path. And of course, every day is different.
Right.
So when we have a day that doesn't really pan out the way we expect, I still went through it feeling my best. And when I didn't feel my best, I know how to kind of course correct. So going back and forth is fine. It's just as long as you know what your end goal is.
Got you. Kind of getting back to what I was saying about Mental Health Awareness Month, right? So you have so many layers to your story. You were saying the first 2 years you saw every family, which had to take a toll on you.
Yeah.
Then secondly, not everybody knows how to properly deal with grief and death. So you also have to learn how to kind of, I would say, compartmentalize, those feelings and emotions for each family while doing the job, while having your own family and your own personal life, right? How did you, decompress, right? How did you separate everything that you were doing? Um, I know there's some other stuff that happened to you that I'm gonna let you share.
Okay.
But I just kind of want to talk about during that process, how did you work on yourself while doing everything?
Therapy.
Okay.
I believe in therapy. My mom's is a licensed professional counselor.
Okay.
So I grew up in that environment.
Okay.
So I talk with her, but I also have another therapist and they don't live in Dallas. I don't really, I'm careful about.
Right. No, you're busy.
So therapy is important. Meditation. I meditate every day. Now, do I go into a private closet and do the chants and all that? No.
Yeah.
Sometimes before I open my eyes, as soon as my brain lets me know that I'm awake, I lay there and I just repeat, I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I just put that in my spirit, And I just keep people around me that they don't necessarily have to be entrepreneurs, but they have to be forward thinking, they have to be positive thinkers, and they have to be comfortable with telling me when I'm doing something incorrect.
Right.
I need that.
Right.
I prefer that.
Nah, for sure.
Yeah.
Working every day, seeing every family ended up taking a toll on your body.
Yeah.
Man, when you shared that story at your previous event, it really hit me because we tend to ignore, different signs that our body tells us because we're so focused on where we're going. Can you share that story with us?
Sure. So the first 2 years, I saw every single family. I only had one person that worked with me as far as answering the phone, so that
Right.
someone can answer the phone. And then my COO now, she came on and she became a part-time person. She was passionate, and then she went to school. She did her apprenticeship. So through all of that, she was with me, but I still had to supervise.
Right.
So I actually went from 2016. I think she graduated in 2021. I'm averaging 250 families. I saw every single family by myself or with her supervising. Now she helps me. Right. And so the story is, about 2 years ago, I started to realize that my body, I'm almost 46. I'm 43 at the time. Like, I don't feel as well, but we had COVID and all the things. I'm thinking I'll be okay.
Right.
And then finally, one day, I was at the funeral home, and I'm making arrangements, but I'm laying on the table because I couldn't hold my head up anymore. So when I'm walking back to my office, Maisha, my COO, was like, "Do you know that you're hanging on the wall to even walk?" And I didn't realize it. So she rushed me to the hospital in Mansfield. The guy comes in and he says, "Oh, well, you have diabetes. Here's some metformin. Go home and take it up with your primary care physician." I'm a very healthy person. I eat well, I exercise, and all the things. Went home, still tried to go back to work, worked for a little bit, came home the next morning. I couldn't even lift my head off the pillow. My friend called me. I'm talking, but I'm slurring my words. And then she called her husband, who's my contractor. He came over to the house. He's had diabetes for 20 years. So they kind of knew what the signs were. He took my blood sugar. It was 560. And he was like, "You need to go to the hospital." Well, I was going through a divorce at the time. My ex-husband was still living in the home. And so he was like, "Well, when he gets home, have him take you to the hospital." I said, "Listen," when he got home, I said, "Listen, I need you to take me to the hospital." Thank God he did, because he could have been like,
"Yeah,
you figure it out," right?
Right.
Thank God he did. And so got to the hospital. They took my blood, and the nurse in the middle of the ER, she was like literally, "I'm in a wheelchair. I can't walk anymore." She said, "Oh my God, your sugar is even higher." Rushed me to the emergency room. I'm in ICU for 5 days. This was January 2023. Wow. 5 days. The doctor comes in and he was like, "Your records show you've never been sick. Like, I very rarely have colds, no flu, what have you." So he starts going through everything. No potassium in my body, no calcium, nothing. All of my minerals are depleted, right? And so I go to my holistic doctor, and he says, "Your pancreas has stopped because your body has shut down." And he said, "If you had not gone to the hospital that night, you would have died in your sleep. That's how fast you were declining." And so it was all because I was dealing with the end of a marriage. I was dealing with my daughter. She's graduating. She's going to Tuskegee in August. So dealing with that. Not knowing how to ask for help from my staff. I'm employing all these people and I'm still working. Like, what are you doing? I'm not processing the grief properly, because now that I'm older, before 26 years ago, people are dying. I don't really have a point of reference. Kids, grandparents, cousins, and all. Since then, I've had 2 miscarriages. I've lost all my grandparents except for one. I've lost cousins. I've embalmed them. I mean, all the things. So now I'm starting to internalize the grief, because when a mother is wailing, I know what that wailing is. And so I'm not realizing that I'm not compartmentalizing. And so me not taking care of myself brought me to where I am now. I'm type 1 diabetic. I wear my pancreas is on the outside of my body. I have a sensor now, but it's better. I have a holistic doctor, and he says I'm doing better. My A1C is down, but it's because I delegate now. I don't see all families now. I have a staff that I pay very well to do it. I empower them to do it. They love to do it. And I actually love sitting back and watching them fulfill their purpose, because all of them wanted to be morticians. So it's a blessing.
At this point, now that you're delegating and you're taking a step back and working on yourself, I pretty much can say or assume that your business is probably flourishing more at this point instead of you seeing everybody doing all the things, right?
It is doing better. Like even our 5-star reviews have other people's names, and it's not just Christie. I feel that if God takes me home tonight, the business will do well because it's not Christie K's funeral home, it's
Right.
Mansfield Funeral Home. It's the staff. They've taken ownership. We had a community event today. I didn't do anything. I gave them the vision. I gave them the budget. I walked in today and everything was done. And I literally shedded some tears because I'm like, this is major for me. It's amazing.
That's amazing. What was your first hire to get there? Because I feel like people want that, right? People want to be able to have a staff to where everything is done and they could just really just show up as the CEO or the director. Who was your? I know you said it was your CEO at the time or your assistant and CEO.
See, my COO was the first technical hire,
Okay.
but after that person, I had a secretary.
Okay.
That was kind of working for the ops. But my first like for real was a young lady named Cynthia.
Okay.
She was out of Fort Worth. She was an older woman. She doesn't mind being called that, but she saw me as a grandchild. She had the community's ear. And she really taught me the importance of being more compassionate. Okay. You know, I would outwardly seem to be okay. And she was like, what do you feel like inside? Like God is not concerned about what are you putting on for everybody else. He's concerned about your heart. Right. So she really taught me how to be compassionate from the inside out. And then Maisha would be a significant one because she's always wanted to be a mortician, but she decided to do other things to be, you know, for a motherhood and marriage and all the things, but her heart, like she and I have the same heart. They think that we're the same people. We look the same. We talk the same. But she allowed me to teach her what was placed in my heart. And I can walk away and know that my business is taken care of. Like when I die, it's her funeral home. I've already put her in the will, all the things. That she's in my trust and everything.
Oh wow. Your daughter wants nothing to do with it? Or?
No. She doesn't, but I've written out the trust that you know, Kennedy will get, you know, monthly proceeds from it. Okay. I don't ever want my child or anybody that I'm associated with to I don't want them to feel that I forced them to do something that they don't want to do. Right. Like I'm a Delta. If Kennedy wants to go and play as Zeta, I'm not gonna pay for it, but I'll be right there at the probate for her. It's that deep for me. I don't want you eating anything, doing anything that you feel forced because it's not gonna come across the same.
Right. Do you have an exit strategy?
I do.
Okay.
Exit strategy is whoever somebody decides to come and offer me a certain amount of money to, you know, partner with me or want to buy it, as long as my staff is good. Okay. I would still love to stay as CEO. I don't believe that you are to start a business to die in the business. Right. I think it's okay that if the right situation comes around, that you allow someone to then walk into their purpose. Okay. I don't believe it's my purpose to be a funeral home owner for the rest of my life. Right. One funeral home or two or three, maybe a corporation or maybe be a consultant. Gotcha. You know, so the exit is whatever God.
Gotcha. I mean, you have expanded right in Frisco now.
Yes, we're in Frisco now.
What made you choose Frisco, and how was that process? Because you already had one, so was it something to where you did that one on your own as well, or was there a partnership opportunity for the one in Frisco?
So I actually bought out all of my partners. I'm 100% owner.
Okay, congratulations!
Thank you.
That's huge.
Thank you. It was necessary. I could have kept my two silent partners, right? But I've used the term that I got tired of being pimped. It's important for people to understand. You have to be careful about who you align with. Gotcha. You know, God is not going to. I don't believe that God was in that because I stopped praying. I said, you know what? The banks are ready. I'm ready. I'm afraid to pray because if I pray for real, I'm afraid that God's going to tell me to do something different. And I don't want to do anything different. Right. But I paid for it. I paid handsomely for it.
Okay. So for those who never been in the process, right? Okay. So you're saying for anybody moving forward, if you do get investors, make sure you have like an expiration date. So like, okay, this is your investment. We promise you get your investment back every quarter. You'll get this return for 3 or 5 years, right? Yes. Then after that, would that say like, okay, this is done? Or is it after that, then I could buy you out, or are they bought out once that contract expired? How does that kind of work?
Yes. And definitely I downloaded my operations agreement from LegalZoom. Mm-hmm. Spend the money, mm-hmm. and I have contacts. Spend the money to get the partnership. And I'm not saying don't do a partnership, but if you do, make sure it's airtight. Right. Because you could be best friends when you sign that paper, but as soon as it's time to make a decision, right. that friendship goes out the window. For sure. That respect sometimes go out the window, unfortunately. And it's money that you have to pay. I actually know one person. They told me that they were able to prove that their business partner stole millions of dollars from the company. And when it was time to buy him out, he still had to write him a check for $1 million. Ooh. Still. Man. And couldn't get any of the money back that he already had. That's how business is. If you don't handle your business up front, mm-hmm. it will catch up with you.
Man, that hurts. Yeah. Okay. So there was something I was reading, and when I read this, it really hit me because there's this quote. When I was younger, I felt like I was fearless. I felt like I was, indestructible. And me and my friends had this thing called, like, I fear no man that bleeds like me, right? So we only fear God. If you bleed just like I do, like a human, like a man, then we're fearless, right? But Napoleon Hill said there's 7 basic fears in life. They're death, poverty, criticism, ill health, old age, loss of love, and liberty. Okay. Right? So freedom. Out of those 7, I'm not gonna lie, I'm fearful of 2: death and poverty. Okay. I'll start with poverty. Poverty first, because my parents are from Panama. They didn't really have much. They had enough to get by, but as an adult myself, I've been broke, with zero, with negative, and I raised 6 figures on my own bootstrapping, mm-hmm. to do an investment, to lose it all, get scammed. Everything I worked for, I lost it all. Gained it back, lost it again. So I understand the process, the ebbs and flows of business, but I also made horrible business decisions that I've learned from. So I'm fearful that, going through that again and not be able to bounce back. But if there's a will, there's a way. And then, if you're right with God. But death, I feel like I'm fearful because of the uncertainty. Okay. Yes, I'm a praying man. I do believe in Jesus. I believe in Christ. But it's also the fact that I don't know what happens. Mm-hmm. And I know you're supposed to have faith, but I can't shake the fact that I have no idea what happens afterwards, right? So with you being, in the funeral industry, like, death, of course, is something you deal with every day. Are you fearful of it, or what's your take on death?
I'm actually not fearful of anything. Okay. I believe that fear, whatever you're fearful of, you attract. Because I believe it's a mindset. However I go. I believe that God takes care of me on this side, right. and I'll be taken care of on the other side. And like I said, there are so many faiths out there. We're gonna find out who's for real and who knows who was right once we die. Right. And once I die, it is what it is. Right. But when it comes to fear, like I said, whatever you're fearful of, you're fearful of poverty. I'm not gonna say that you're gonna face it again. Right. But you attract it. For sure. It's one thing to be concerned, mm-hmm. and to want to take the efforts to not go through that again. Right. But for you to say, I'm fearful, that's allowing the universe to be like, oh, okay. Gotcha. That makes sense. Let me make it harder for you. And then you're working even harder not to experience that again. Mm-hmm. So I would just challenge you, if that's okay.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I would challenge you. Just change your mindset. Don't say that you're fearful. Okay. Just say, I'm going to do whatever I can to continue to go where I want to go.
Nah, for sure.
And just see what happens.
No, I like that. And I also know when I practice, when it comes to my business, and I actually practice the stuff that I've learned, that I do these courses and whatever, I actually grow from there. It's when I sit and think about, like, okay, man, this last situation what happened to me, when I allow my mind to go that way, yes. That's when, I get those feelings, and I shouldn't let them, take over my mind and be fearful of it happening again. I learned from it. It was a lesson. Yes. Move on, and then, you can go from there. But I do like the fact that it is a mindset thing, and to change that. So with you not, even in business, right? So you say you don't fear anything. How do you deal with, like, a tough business decision, right? Do you lean on somebody? Do you just pray on it and let it happen? Like, how do you deal with those tough business decisions, such as buying out partners, or such as, it may be a slow month, but people still want their salaries, right? They still want their pay. So, like, yes. How do you deal with the adversity when it comes to business?
I've learned to let my expectations known. Mm-hmm. And I've learned to stand on them. Okay. When it comes to my staff, I tell them all the time, you real quick to make a mistake and be lax about it, but let me miss an hour on your check, and then you want to come and charge me up. No. So I'm gonna charge you up when you cost me money.
Gotcha.
We're gonna talk about your negligence, that cost me all of this money, but the fact you still want to get paid. Right. So I've learned, and I do it in love, of course, but I've learned to set expectations. Okay. I've learned to let people know that it's important. You're going to respect me. Right. You're gonna respect my position. You may not agree, but you're gonna respect it. And when I do that, it levels the playing field. When it comes, I've had times where I went, I think 4 weeks, the phone did not ring. Now, when that happened the first time, I'm tripping. Right. The first time it happened, and I literally remember going out looking for a new job. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to give me a side gig, keep this funeral home, work a side gig. And everywhere I applied, they wouldn't even hire me as a waitress. I'm like, I have a master's. I have 4 degrees. What are you talking about? Yeah. And finally, it was because it was God telling me, just stand still, stand in it. Mm-hmm. And there was another time where my account literally got down to $1,500 across all accounts, business accounts. And I need to make payroll. This was about 4 years ago. Yeah. And I called one of my partners, which is my uncle. I said, I'm gonna need you to float me. I'm gonna need about $20,000 because at the time my payroll was like $12,000. Okay. I'm gonna need you to float me. And I said, but tell you what, as I'm talking to you, God is nudging me to be still. Mm-hmm. I said, so I'm gonna be still. And if I still need you in a couple of days, I need you to have it ready, like on go. Really available, yeah. Yeah. And I prayed about it, went to bed the next day. 4 families called us, and I have not. I've gone through my valleys since then, right. But I have learned it's a valley. You have a great savings. Your staff is good. Stay calm. Don't trip, and don't make silly decisions when it's good. Like when the money is good. That's the thing about the funeral industry. We can literally have hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash, credit cards a week. Oh wow! Literally a week. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing for us to spend the money and not pay our vendors. And there are some funeral homes that don't pay their staff and all the things. But I have learned I pay everybody. There are no vendors that can say that Christie is late, because I'm like, I'm going to honor, this is not my money. This is God's money. Right. I pay myself. I pay my vendors. I pay my staff. And I have a savings. And then I make sure that anything else that's out there lingering, that is taken care of. So when I do have a slow period, I'm not about to fall on the floor and cry, trying to figure out what's going on.
Got you. When did you put yourself on salary? Was it day one or?
So funny thing about it is, I opened Mansfield Funeral Home in August of 2016. I was working home health and hospice as a marketer. Okay. And so my goal was to keep the previous owner's employee on salary, and I was just kind of come in and just kind of dip in and out. We had a family. I got the keys that night of the closing. We had a family that night. And so I told the employee, I said, well, tell you what, I'll meet you there. I just want to kind of see, because I didn't vet them. I should have vet the person. That's something else I learned. Got there, that person did not know what they were doing. Oh, wow. They literally was making arrangements, didn't know what they were doing. And I said, oh my goodness. So I literally had to quit my job. That was a Thursday. I quit my job that Friday. I had $100,000 working capital that they gave me for that person's salary and for like marketing and things. And that was supposed to just float me. That's all the money I had. Okay. The rest of it was tied up in the loan, SBA loan.
Okay, SBA route.
I won an SBA route. Nice. And I had $100,000 in my account. And I was making 6 figures. And I'm like, what in the world? Because I got to get paid something. Yeah. And I ended up paying myself a small salary. So I was an LLC, so small salary. Eventually, I became an S corp. Okay. And yeah, so that's how I got started with my salary. Wow. And we ran through that money.
I'm not trying to put your business out there, but I would assume you made millions. Okay. Do you remember the feeling of hitting your first million?
My first lick, yeah. Yeah. So I do remember, and it was over a course of a year. Okay. So my revenue. Right. And yeah, I got the tattoo, Count It All Joy, that commemorates that.
It's okay from? Okay.
Yeah. It was a great feeling because I had written out, I believe in tithing. Okay. So I wrote out $100,000 check to my church and put it on the wall like 6 years before that. And 10% of $1 million is what?
100,000.
100,000. So when I hit that, and I didn't give the church 100,000. No, I didn't do that. I do tithe in other ways in my business.
Right.
But to know that I've visualized writing a check for $100,000 and I was able to do it if I wanted to, meant everything to me. Okay. But what came with that, I got lax. I wasn't praying as fervently as I was before. I'm like, I made it so God. I started taking God for granted. Like, okay, He'll do it again. And He did do it again the next year. Yeah. But it wasn't as free flowing. Like I was having to hustle to get it done. I worked for it. Yeah. And then eventually business started to slow, quite honestly. And I was like, oh my God, you know how you going up and you kind of can tell when you kind of come back down? And I realized when I was coming back down, I said, whoa, God, I'm sorry, whoa, what I do? I had to go, I went into the prayer closet. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. I'm spending, I'm in North Park Mall spending, I'm eating all the things and give me a ribeye and some potatoes before I could afford a cutlet. Okay. There was times I had 50 cents in my account. Yeah. $20 to last me for a month. Like that's how bad it was at one point. And the hitting that lick, I wasn't ready for it. Yeah. And so I had to pray to God and I said, Lord, I'm learning. Thank you for, trusting me with these families and trusting me with this. I was still, I tithed on my child support. Like I didn't play. On my personal, I tithe everything to the cent. I said, Lord, I'm still honoring you. I'm still tithing. Whatever I need to do to let you know that I want to learn this lesson. Right. When I learn it, I promise you will never have to take me through this valley. Now, maybe another valley.
Yeah, something different.
This here.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, I've learned to just be still.
I know you said that you do it differently. So you also have your own foundation, right? Yes. Is that an opportunity for you, of course, to give back to the community? But what do you consider tithing? I know one time you said, you also give to families. You reciprocate what you receive as well. So what are some other ways that you tithe? And then talk about what made you want to start your foundation.
I tithe in other ways my time. Okay. There are families that come in and they just cannot afford the full contract. And so I'll discount it.
Okay. That's awesome.
We'll talk about it. It's every once in a while I'll do it. I actually had one family that came in and they didn't need for me to just not, but it was a child that had passed. And they had other children in their family. Right. And the baby died, she died suddenly. And I didn't have my own crematory at the time. And I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll pay for it. I paid for it out of my pocket, and the father just bawled. Right. That's my way of tithing. That's my way of giving back. Right. Like I said, I suffered from the 2 miscarriages. And so we don't charge for cremation. That's my way of giving back to the community. When we deal with veterans, they get discounts. Suicide families, they get discounts. And then even if there's like not a physical discount on the contract, I always go above and beyond for my families. They'll order a certain amount of flowers. I always upgrade them. Right. Like there's no family that we've served that has not received more than what they paid for, whether it's a discount on the contract as a line item or not. Gotcha. They still get. So that's my way of giving back. When I'm out and eating with my friends and family, I always overtip. Okay. It's just I'm giving it out because I know that God's going to give it right back to me.
And now you have Christie K Foundation.
Yes.
Amethyst Gala. Huge gala. Gala or gala? I don't know.
It's gala.
Gala, okay. I always get confused.
It's all good.
Huge gala. What made you want to start this foundation, first off?
When I started down my path, I didn't really have anyone my age. Right. Well, my family's full of entrepreneurs, but I was the first to have a brick and mortar.
Gotcha.
And so I didn't really have it. And so all the mistakes I made was either me not wanting to ask for help, or me not trusting people who wanted to help, or just me not having the resources.
Gotcha.
So over the years, I've amassed banking relationships and marketing relationships and just so many relationships that when I meet an entrepreneur now, before the foundation, I was like, yeah, you should call this the person.
Right.
And I was finding myself talking to people one-on-one every day, all day, spending a lot of time.
Right.
And so I started the Amethyst Gala 3 years ago. The next one is coming up August 30th. And that was to celebrate people in the community.
Right.
Well, it was really hard for me to get people to take me seriously because I'm just this woman who owns a business who wants to throw a gala.
Right.
And so finally, one of my mentors was like, you should really start a nonprofit because you can do lunch and learns, you can do things, and you look more, it legitimizes your vision.
Okay.
And I was like, well, that takes forever. I heard it takes years. And he was like, no, it doesn't. Yeah. So my CFO actually started my nonprofit. Okay. It's the Christie K Foundation. It empowers and uplifts entrepreneurs, no matter where you are in the space of entrepreneurship. Okay. You cannot even have started your business. You want to start a business.
Gotcha.
And it's just a way to empower people and to connect them where they are in their process.
For sure.
And we've had a lot of success stories already. People have found funding.
It's awesome.
We've shifted mindsets. So now they're able to pivot when they felt stuck. And we just had one last week with Credit Union of Texas. And one lady was talking about how fearful she was to take the next step. She was fearful of success because she was afraid of how people were, her family and friends were going to perceive her.
Right.
By making the money or the fame or the recognition. And I just spoke into her.
Awesome.
And I could just see how her mindset just shifted with that. So that's what the foundation's about.
That's awesome. I actually had the opportunity to attend Lunch and Learn. And what I enjoyed about it too, because I've been to a lot of Lunch and Learns throughout my journey, is that it was personable. Not only do we get the information, but you share your personal experiences and stories, which people can resonate with. 'Cause a lot of times when you just talk to bankers, sometimes it just comes off as numbers and just do these tasks. But sometimes you need an actual example to go with the information.
That's right.
So I really enjoyed that because some people don't think it's possible for them. They're like, oh, well, that person has great credit or they come from money. But to hear somebody's story like, hey, my credit wasn't great. I've been denied 7, 8 times. This is what I did. They're like, I'm in the same position.
Right.
So that way I can get through it. So I really appreciate the transparency, that you share at your Lunch and Learns, aside from just like the actual business acumen that you share. So that's amazing. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you're an entrepreneur. But one question I want to ask, I have 2 more. One is, it's kind of a cliche answer, but I feel like everybody has their own journey or path when it comes to this. Is everything that you've been through that you learned, what is one piece of advice that you would share with somebody who wants to start today?
Start today with knowing that you can do it.
Okay.
It's all about mindset. Okay. I say it. It's all about mindset. You can change thought processes of people that you are engaging with. You can make someone's no become a yes just by feeling inside that you can do it and not leading with, oh my God, they're probably going to say no, but let me try anyway. They're probably going to say no already cancels it out. And if they do say yes, it's probably not going to be to the level that it could be.
Right.
And don't be afraid to ask.
That's a big one.
I was literally on a plane. Went to Lovers and Friends that was canceled.
Okay.
But I was on a plane back from Vegas. I sat next to a man who I told him what I did. He told me what he did. And I just started firing out questions. He literally has put me in contact with people that can help take my business to the next level.
Oh, wow.
And that's sincerely because I said, hello, how are you doing? Where are you headed? And we took off from there.
Oh, wow.
Just talk. Open up your mouth.
Were you sitting in first class?
No, this was Southwest.
You hear all that? See, the first class conversation be different.
Right. No, it was Southwest, and and then the funny story is that before we got to the airport, I prayed like, Lord, you know my vision for the funeral home, but I don't really know where to go. Just put the person or persons or whatever in my path, and I let it go.
Okay.
I'm supposed to take the 8:05 flight.
Right.
And we actually would have got the last 3 seats on the 6:30 flight.
Okay.
So it's 3 seats left. So it was this guy in one seat, this guy in another seat, and then one behind them. And I said, you know what? And it was an exit row. So the flight from Vegas is pretty long.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm like, you know what? Push through. And some just kept nudging me to sit next to this person. Just sit next to him. Yeah. And I was going to go sit there.
Okay.
And I did it. And it was great.
That's awesome.
It was a great connection.
That's awesome. Mindset's huge. So of course, we want to publicly give you your flowers. Of course, we co-sign you. But who does Christie K co-sign?
I first co-signed you.
Appreciate it.
That's why you got the award last year.
Thank you. But I'm not gonna lie. Like whoever else gave me an award, I appreciate you. But this award is super heavy, right? It's big. It's on brand, and my mom is very, very, very particular, right? And as soon as she seen that award amongst others, she was like, "What do you do to get this?" I'm like, well, I don't know, but I'm taking it everywhere.
That means a lot, and that's what
Yeah.
I want. I wanted, I've received awards, and I'm grateful for any recognition
Right.
that I get or
Of
don't
course.
get. But I was like, I want when the honoree gets this award, I want them to know that I put thoughts and care
Yes.
into selecting them, into picking the award. Like I handpicked
Right.
that award, and there's no award like it.
Nah,
They're handmade custom awards,
yeah, it's
and
amazing.
that's just what I do at Mansfield Funeral Home. I do for my foundation. I do for my crematory. I'm about creating an experience like
For
no
sure.
other for every single person. I also co-sign anybody that just wants to take a chance.
For sure.
I have so many people out there that have poured into me, from my mentors to my parents. My daughter is my inspiration, my circle of friends, who have poured into me. My best friend, Summer, that's in New York. So I wouldn't dare just name them all.
Right.
But I am a fan of anybody that's crazy enough.
Yeah.
Crazy enough to jump out there and say, you know what, let's do it.
For sure.
Let's do it.
It takes a different type of person to really make a living from their own work, from their own passion, right? Like, man, I've done it all. I mean, I've done construction, I've sold shoes, girl, I've done all types of hustles, and I'm just proud of myself and everybody who's been able to, create something out of nothing with their own passion, with their mind. So I salute all the entrepreneurs, creators, hustlers, bootstrappers, people who don't have it figured out, but they know that's what they want to do. Definitely get
Absolutely.
out there, get started today. The longer you wait, the longer it's going to take to happen. And it's living proof right here. So,
Thank
Christy,
you.
thank you for your time, your energy. Please make sure you go to the Amethyst Gala. Shoot the date over again.
It's August 30th.
Okay.
It'll be in Dallas.
Okay.
And can I announce
Of course.
So our celebrity artist this year is Layla Hathaway.
Okay.
So it's gonna be dope. Last year we had Joe. The year before that we had Carl Thomas. It's gonna be a multi-course meal, open bar, hand-rolled cigars. It's gonna be an after party, and it's gonna be live music, and it will not disappoint.
Make sure you be there. You had me at open bar, so so I'll definitely be there. Us at Cosign, we co-sign Christie K, the foundation, the gala, of course. Please make sure you be there. Thank you for the time, and until next time, y'all take it easy. Continue to the Cosign life. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and follow Christie K on all social media platforms. Y'all take it easy.